Hey everyone, welcome to the latest edition of MSP Business School. I'm Brian Doyle, and with me today, I have my only consistent co-host, Tim McNeil, joining me today.
Yep.
Rob is off working on some stuff for, as we record this, it's the week before IT Nation, and he's getting some stuff done for IT Nation, so we'll cut him a little bit of slack.
Yeah, this one's okay. It's got to break out next week. So
even though the homework was really due yesterday.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
No shock, right?
You know,
but
just get an extension. You're fine.
That's it, and Rob will work the extension all the time with all of us, won't he?
Yeah.
But with that being said, again, I always like to say people aren't here to hear me and you, Tim. They're here to hear from our guests, and we're excited to have Scott Haselkorn from Haselkorn Inc. join us today. Scott is somebody that both Tim and I are familiar with, and we're glad that he's finally able to come join us on the show.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
So we love to kick things off, Scott, first by talking a little bit about your backstory, right? Everybody finds a unique way to get into the services industry, but we talked about something during this pre-interview that kind of stuck with me. You might have not found your way. You might have set a course to do this at a very young age compared to many others.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So, I kind of go back a little far when I tell this story because it's really key to who I am, right? So I start off in first grade. So in first grade, I had a learning disability and I had trouble learning to read. And I would sit in the circle of kids and I'd sit in the middle and I would remember what the kid next to me said and regurgitate it. And I get through my first year of first grade, prelude to me doing it again. And my parents were like, shouldn't he know how to read by now? And the teachers were like, yeah, he's great at reading. He's right in line with everyone else. And they're like, well, you can't do it at home. So something's up. And they figured out that I had this learning disability and basically just like fumbled my way and lied and cheated and stealed through first grade. So stayed back, learned to read. And around maybe third or fourth grade, I read my first book that a teacher or parent didn't coerce me into reading. And it was an interesting one. It was MS-DOS 3.2 manual. And I don't know, it just felt like there was a goal. There was
reading for every third grader. Right?
I mean, yeah. The result from reading this book, I could learn to do something. And there wasn't anything else like see, Jane or Dick run, like that didn't teach me anything. That didn't give value to me. So I read through this book. I started helping my parents with their computers and, just for fun, like how to write a letter, how to play games and things. And I remember vividly in fourth grade having an argument with a teacher how stealing software wasn't allowed. And even though she was a teacher and it was her school. And I started telling everyone, when I grew up, I want to own a computer store. Now, it's not really an awesome business model today, right? No offense to anyone who does it, but it's just not the path I chose.
But I think back then that wouldn't have been a bad model.
Yeah, exactly.
No, back then, right?
Different world.
Yeah, this was in the early 90s, right? So very different world. And at 12, I had this great idea to start a computer company. And I figured, I want to build my own computers, right? I don't want to buy anything, I want to resell it. So what do I want to start with? I wanted to start with Intel processors. So this was before the internet. This is before really even the yellow pages. So I called 411, got the phone number to Intel in California, called them up. And I said, how do I open an account to buy processors? And this nice lady said, well, you have to be referred by one of our 4 clients. And I, was smart enough to realize that I wasn't going to be number 5. So I said, okay, well, let me start there. Like, give me those 4 clients, right? And so I called up a bunch of these distributors. And the one that I remember was Tech Data, who now is merged with Synex. Mm-hmm. And the nice lady there, she was either amused by this little kid on the phone or like didn't realize how young I was. And she gave me the rules. She's like, you need a tax ID, sales tax ID, you need a credit card, and you need to fill out an application. So I asked her to send me the application. I gave her my address and I went to my parents and I said, hey, I want to start a company and this is why I need to do it. And, I'm 12 years old. This is probably around 93, 94. And they were like, well, we'll get back to you. So like a few days later, they were like, okay, we decided it's a go. So my dad got a credit card with my name on it. He was the primary, I was the secondary, a minor. It was kind of crazy. I did get into some trouble with it. And and I got a state sales tax ID, and I opened this account, and they shipped me this big catalog. It came once a quarter and had all the parts, all the prices, and you could call and order stuff. So I started fixing parents' computers of friends or teachers' computers. And there was this unspoken rule, right? You had to pick me up if I couldn't bike to your house because I couldn't drive yet. And if I was there at a meal, you'd feed me, and you would pay me when I left whatever you wanted to pay. And I would, if I needed any parts, I'd order them. And, I basically sold it at cost because my margin was the income. So I did that through high school and made some good money. I was the friend who people bummed money on to go to the movies, and I was one who didn't have a job after school, but, always had things going on and clients, and some were even businesses. I don't know why they trusted me, but, they got me my start.
Hey, whatever works.
And so that was sort of my beta stage, right? Where I was having fun, biking around, driving around eventually, and just helping people, and saw that this was a path to my future that, was different than I had thought maybe 5-6 years ago, but, helping people was great. Through some of that trouble I got myself in, I ended up getting a job at a local ISP doing tech support. And this was a dial-up ISP back for us old timers now. And I helped people get online, businesses, consumers, grandmas, whatever, and moved into their commercial support department. We were one of the first carriers to have DSL in the country. And because we got acquired by RCN, Residential Communications Network, they still exist. They have some cool history, like the largest private investment of a non-voting shareholder ever from Paul Allen. One of his last big investments was in RCN. He was a owner of Charter Communications, so he wasn't allowed to have voting shares. But he saw what we were doing and thought it was really cool and a good investment. So anyway, long story short, I was there for 6 years, moved into network administration, got trained with my MCSE, and, just loved what I was doing. Through good salaries, lots of parties, and too much investment in rollout, I ended up getting laid off, not once, but twice from the same company. They offered to move me to Maryland, and I thought, my family's here. I had a young son who I wasn't married to the mother at the time, never did actually. And was like, well, I can't leave my family, can't leave my son. I'm not transferring again. And who knows if you're going to lay me off for a third time. So anyway, so I was in a relationship, engaged. I bought a condo literally 2 weeks before getting laid off for the second time, because I knew the writing was on the wall. And if I was unemployed, I wouldn't get that mortgage. So I made it happen. And for about a month, I didn't really do anything. And I started applying for jobs, couldn't find any work. This company had a lot of people, and they dumped a lot of people into the local economy who were nerds, about 600 people. And I was last to the line because I was kept on to help close down the location, right? Which I didn't realize was a bad idea for me at the time. But in retrospect, a good idea, because it gave me the opportunity to do what I'm doing today. So, I'm at home with my fiance, who I'm still married to today, who runs the business with me now, and was like, maybe I should try this old idea of doing a computer business. And shortly before being laid off, I know I'm going a little bit out of order, I did a training class on how to teach dental offices how to use dental software. So my father was a dentist. I moonlit, helped him out, and I opened up shop in his dental office, occupying a basically empty office he had there, and just sort of waited for people to call. And eventually, he had friends who asked him questions, and he was like, "Yeah, my son will come over right now. He's not doing anything. He'll help you out." And so I got my first paying client, and this is where we get into the evolution of MSP, right? So my goal was to have about 10 clients paying me about $1,000, $1,500 a month. have maybe one employee and sort of like be set, and just have this nice, easy life. And it wasn't so simple, right? So I wanted flat rate agreements, all in, 24/7 support. And, then my employee wants healthcare. And, then I need to provide them a car because they're not reliably getting to work every day because their car is failing. And it's not about payment, it's just about priorities for
These
them.
are just the joys of being a business owner, though. That just comes with the territory.
Yeah. So like all these things start piling up, and I'm like, well, I guess I need another person to make more money to make this happen. And it just sort of like snowballed. And long story short, I went from like Outlook and Post-it note calendars to I tried Microsoft Dynamics for a little while, and then I ended up on Autotask. And I was still in this sort of bubble where like I felt like everyone was my enemy, and that there was no room for collaboration, that I had secret sauce that no one else knew. And, I was going to conquer the world with my now maybe 20 clients, because that's what I needed to, live the good life. So I eventually got on, I think it was called Level Platforms, as a RMM tool,
Level
right?
Platforms.
And they invited me to an event in Florida. And it was called IT Nation. And they gave me this free pass to a pre-day training class for Level Platforms, and they invited me to stay for this big event. And I didn't know what it was, had never heard of it. And I started walking around, and I'm thinking, this is pretty cool. These are all these people, they're like me, they like computers, and they're making a business out of this. And I end up in Arnie's keynote. I remember vividly, I was sitting next to this guy, didn't know him. He introduced himself to me. I'm bad with names, so I don't remember what his name was, but we're in this keynote. And as you remember, Arnie was really good at the keynotes, right? He was a very good speaker. And he started talking, and he's like, raise your hand if you're using ConnectWise this, raise your hand if you're using ConnectWise this. And I'm basically sitting in my hands wondering, like, what is going on here? This is like a cult event. And like, I don't know anything he's talking about. And this guy sitting next to me, he's like, what are you doing here if you're not raising your hand? And I'm like, I don't really know. And every time there'd be clapping or something, he'd ask me a question. And near the end, he's like, hey, why don't I go give you a demo? It turns out he was like the head of sales for ConnectWise at the time. So he comes and gives me a demo. And I look at the demo, and at the time, there were a lot of good things in Autotask, but the one thing they were horrible at was their mobile app. And it was like the Achilles heel of the product. And he showed me the mobile app, and I was like, this thing's awesome. So remember, IT Nation is basically a 2-day event. I call my wife after that demo, and I'm like, I think we got to get this ConnectWise thing. And she's like, you're crazy. There were some expletives. And she's like, we're not doing any changes. Like, just get back here and let's get back to work, right?
Stop buying stuff.
So I'm walking around, going to classes, like looking at the floor, I keep seeing the ConnectWise sales guy. He keeps talking to me. And by the end of the 2-day event, I bought ConnectWise, and I started my journey with their platform. And it changed my life, because it wasn't about the platform, right? It was about being willing to collaborate, look for answers, not try and reinvent the wheel yourself. And it was funny because they're all talking about managed services and how you should switch from break fix. Something like, I've been doing this for years. Like, no one told me about this idea. This is how I felt it was best to work, which they're promoting, right? So we did that for a long time, and grew and grew and grew. And we have I'd say about 75 clients now, probably about 80 or 90 locations at those clients, because some have multiple sites, some have many sites. And we've been coasting along for probably a decade doing this, in and out of peer groups, and always trying new things. And I guess we're sort of on version 2.0 is starting now with security, right? It's really clear to me that that's the future. Anyone can plug a computer in. They're getting easier to configure, maintain, but those evildoers out there are all out to get all of us, right? And that's what keeps me up at night, thinking about the things out there that threaten my clients, that threaten me. I don't want to be the cause of their pain and suffering. I'm really proud, and I talk about it a lot, even though I get sort of the goosebumps when I do that. We've never had a client pay ransom. We've only had 2 clients ever over 10 years ago deal with ransom, and it was cumulatively across those 2 people less than 4 hours of impact, which is amazing. But with all the education I'm doing now and the things we're rolling out for clients, I feel like it's kind of dumb luck that it's been that well. I mean, there's strategic choices, but you know, when you hear about people like me who get hit with it, they're not necessarily doing a lot different, right? I mean, there's always that smoking gun and you're like, well, I don't do that, but like, it's always different. It's not like it's one thing. So that's what I'm focusing on now is, you know, migrating to a security focused practice and making sure that the clients I have are the ones that, you know, don't want those rainy days to happen, that they can control. You know, computers will break, right? Like servers fail, switches fail, firewalls fail, desktops fail. But those are minor incidents that you can recover from pretty quickly.
You can overcome.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
So, and you can plan with reasonable redundancies. That's what I tell my clients all the time. Like, you know, it's about creating quiet networks that don't need a lot of care. And that's done through automation, through good choices, and not letting equipment get to be ancient, right? Yeah, so you do those things and then you put security on top of it, you should be in a pretty good place. But it's about constantly evolving, right? You can't just sit still because the threats are changing every day. So that's sort of my long-winded, you know, I just thinking about this other day, I'm 42. So I've been doing this now for 30 years and it's taken some turns, but you know, it's been a wild journey and I love it every day, even the days I don't love, right? It's still fun and I'm still smiling, and you know, nothing's better than a client who appreciates what you do to help them keep their business going, right?
Well, the cool thing about our industry is it's ever changing, right? You kind of hit upon it, you know, keeping up with the bad guys is a big part of what we have to do these days. Those bad actors, you know, are coming up with new opportunities. And, you know, for most of us that are catering to the SMB community, we're really talking about folks that are not being targeted, but are being, you know, still have absolute cybersecurity threats coming their way because of the fact that they're leaving ports open. If they're misconfigured, those things, the bots will go out, see it, and once they find those ports open, you know, they'll drop in whatever the choice for that day might be. So we're definitely seeing in the conversations Tim and I have been having with customers, definitely centered around, hey, it's kind of a security first model these days.
Oh yeah.
And those that are not keeping up with a security first model are going to be the ones that don't make it through the next wave of adaptation and evolution, right? You talked about it, managed services in the past. It was break fix before that. Then we have our cloud era. And now with most of the customers hitting the cloud by the end of the COVID timeframe, you know, what never goes out of style? Security.
Right. I'm a little different in that sense though, because I have a lot of healthcare clients. You know, I used to call myself the sensitive data IT company, right? Like if you had sensitive data and you had compliance issues, I'm your guy. But that's made a lot of on-prem stuff still really popular. And I don't believe today, if you're a single location business, the cloud generally has a lot to offer you. I think it creates a lot of issues. Unless you're of like a really small size where investing in a server doesn't make a lot of sense, right? But once you start having 2, 3, 4, 5 locations, that whole equation gets thrown out the window, because you know, then you create your single point of failure becomes one business location. I have one client with 5 locations. They're a oral surgery group, and they had a tree fall down and take out the power lines in front of their building one time, and they were down for like 4 days. It took forever. And another time, like a tornado/hurricane type thing went through town, and they were down for another week. And this was all in 1 year, right? And like, wow. It was their primary site. where their server was. Like there wasn't really much we could do because you think, well, do we go pick the stuff up if the cops will even let us to the building? And if we do, by the time we finish rebuilding everything and moving it to a new location, are we just going to be having to put it all back together again, right? So you just kind of hurry up and wait. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, we're getting near the end of our time. So let's talk about a little bit about.
Sorry.
No, it's all
No.
good. I mean, look, fascinating story. Not many of the MSP owners we've talked to, and Tim, I think you'd echo this, started at a young and tender age. Certainly, I don't think anybody we've talked to is reading MS-DOS books in fourth grade, right? So
yeah, I think that was it more than anything. The that quick and easy read that you started out with, that was the game changer.
So some would say it was like, predestined at that point. The first recreational read is MS-DOS. I still get shudders.
It was
shuddered
the metal
thinking back to the DOS
spiral-bound
days.
metal spiral-bound book. It was about like an inch and a half thick. It was like brutal. Those weird like 3/4 pages or something like that. So I did want to say one thing though. I feel like my enterprise time taught me a lot, and when I first started it, after that part of my journey, I would tell my prospects that I'm bringing enterprise practices to the small business, right? I did back in the early 2000s, I was doing Active Directory for small businesses. You had 3 or more computers, that's what you got, and it made compliance easy. It made it was a lot of work to set it up, but then it just worked really well. And I think that a lot of people who come into this space from the like consumer, liking video games, liking building their computers, it's hard for them to jump up to elevation, like meaning to the next level of client, right? When you granted, I wasn't on my own, but we had 600 computers and about 40 servers in that one location that I ran in Springfield, Mass. And like the type of issues we'd have on the network would be like catastrophic, but they'd be these minor configuration things that a small network, can handle with no problem. So it just prepared me for keeping things standardized and safe and dependable for my clients, which is invaluable. So I still see people I meet every once in a while that used to work there with me, and they remember me, and some of them have ill will on their old employer, but they taught me a lot. I can't thank RCN enough, and JavaNet, local business up here. As much as I was sort of on the trajectory, they sort of leapfrogged me through that growth phase. Yeah. So
very cool.
Yeah. Awesome. So with that said, I think we're hitting near the end. Tim, you want to take us home?
Yeah, I can give it a go. We'll see.
Give it a go. This is usually Rob's part of our
this is usually Rob's part. So, well, look, Scott, I appreciate you having me on. It's always good seeing you. I know, we still talk once in a while. You deal more with Rob, but good to have you on. So, look, you'll find this podcast and every other podcast we do on MSP Business School and anywhere that you can find a podcast, to include YouTube, where if you want to watch us, give it a go. With that, I guess, Scott, any last words or anything else you want to close it out with?
Yeah, I would just say that, to take it full circle, right? I think that all the MSPs in the world and MSSPs are really peers and teammates. It's the ones who do it right and put security first make us all stronger. And they help us educate the general population of business owners and business managers that, going with the $30 an hour guy with a car who doesn't even talk to you about security is not the right path to go, right? And I welcome our government to regulate the industry. I tell people all the time, you need more in Massachusetts to be a hairdresser, nothing against them, than you do for my line of work. And I feel like I can cause a lot more damage if I don't do it well.
You're
And,
channeling my line. I always say
I
you got to
mean,
get a license
yeah.
to get a haircut, but anybody.
Yeah,
can
what,
be an
what about the
MSP.
people
Yeah.
that have to go to a wedding though? Like it's a big deal.
I mean, but yeah, that's a one-time event. That's a big deal, right? I
Okay.
think that this industry is due for some evolution,
Yeah.
and I can't wait to see it. And hopefully we'll all work together to get through that and make the world a safer place for the good guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No
very
doubt.
good. Well, look,
Well, thanks
Scott,
for
appreciate
joining
you
us,
coming
Scott.
on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
All right,
All right.
guys.
Have a good
Until
one.
next week.
You too. Thank
We'll
you.
see
Yeah.
ya.
All right. Bye.